Hello, good morning. I am Marjorae Ignacio and I am from the College of Forestry and Natural Resources, UPLB. I will be presenting my undergraduate thesis titled Surface Soil Erosion Potential of Mount Makiling Forest Reserve using Revised Universal Soil Loss Equation, or also known as the RUSLE or the RUSLE model. Let's proceed. So, there are three major steps of accelerated water erosion. So these are the detachment of soil particles, transportation of soil particles in the form of splashing, rolling, and dragging. And for the last one is the deposition part, wherein the soil particles were deposited to a lower elevation or into water reservoir. So globally, about 1 billion hectares are already affected by soil erosion. So it was cited in previous literatures that the estimated soil erosion globally is about 17 tons per hectare per year. So in the Philippines, there are around 16 million cubic meters of annual soil loss, and Philippines are susceptible to erosion because of steep topography, deforested uplands, soil structure, and its climatic conditions. There are various methods in estimating the soil loss. So it is based on the actual soil erosion in field plots, field survey method using the visual indices of erosion, and lastly, the soil erosion modeling. So the soil erosion modeling can be classified into three. These are the physics-based model, the empirical model, which is the RUSLE, and then the conceptual methods. So the USLE was later revised in 1997 and was later known as the Revised Universal Soil Loss Equation. So the RUSLE model predicts long-term annual averages of erosion based on the rainfall patterns, soil type, topography, and management practices. So despite its limitation, several researchers employed modification in the model to estimate soil erosion. So spatial researchers have explored the spatial distribution of soil erosion loss using geographical information system techniques. So it provides significant estimation on large areas rather than the traditional ones, which is more expensive. So the location of this study is in Mount Makiling Forest Reserve. So it is known as a sanctuary to the flora and fauna, and it is also provides fresh water and other vital ecosystem services around the municipalities of the Laguna and Batangas. However, the ability of the MFR to continue to provide its vital ecosystem services is being threatened by soil erosion that can cause on-site and off-site environmental problems. Determining soil erosion potential in MFR will aid in identifying priority areas for protection and conservation to minimize damages due to excessive surface soil erosion. This study will also help in identifying erosion hotspots needed for further assessment in identifying appropriate land use and soil and water conservation strategies. So the objectives of this study is to generate a soil erosion potential map based on soil loss estimation using the RUSLE model. So the following are the specific objectives of the study. So number one is to calculate the extent of soil erosion loss in tons per hectare per year using the RUSLE model in ArcGIS, to estimate the average soil loss in tons per hectare per year in the four sub-watersheds of the MMFR, and then lastly, to determine the extent of potential loss in MMFR, showing the soil erosion potential classes to erosion. So now let's proceed to the methodology. So generally, the universal soil loss equation is the multiplication of all impacting factors. So A is equal to R times K times LS times C times P. So A is the annual soil loss in tons per hectare per year. So the R is the rainfall erosivity. The K is for the soil erodibility. LS is for the slope length factor. C is the crop and management factor. And then the P is the support and conservation factor. So all the vector shapefiles were derived from different agencies in the Philippines. And for the R factor, precipitation data were derived from Bureau of Soils and Water Management. It is derived from their aggregate stations around the Calabarzon region. So R factor is defined as the rainfall erosivity factor as the kinetic energy at a 30-minute intensity. R factor is greatly affected by the amount, intensity, and raindrop size of rainfall, reflecting soil erosion. So, due to the absence of detailed rainfall data, I used this equation in estimating the R factor. So, R is equal to 38.5 plus 35 times P, wherein the P represents the annual rainfall. So, this equation was used in different tropical countries such as the Thailand, Sri Lanka, and the Philippines. So, this is the summarized table. So the aggregate stations in Calabarzon region are the Ayuti Quezon, Lemery Batangas, one in Cavite, and another one from San Antonio Quezon, Santa Cruz Laguna, Tanay, and the MMFR aggregate station. So the computed R values ranging from 653 to 741. So the rainfall erosivity map was processed using the IDW function in the ArcGIS tool. So for the K factor, so soil erodibility factor is defined as the degree of impact of eroding factors such as wind and water on the soil structure. So soil erodibility values for the MMFR are the following. So for the Lipa loam and Macolod clay loam are 0.63 and 0.3 respectively. So these values um, were computed by David in 1988. So now let's proceed for the LS factor. So the slope length factor is the effect of topography and slope steepness on soil erosion by water. So it is a vital parameter in soil erosion estimation because it shows runoff relationships with the increasing slope, length, and gradient. So it was calculated through integrating topographic map and slope gradient raster map in raster calculation using this formula. So LS is equal to flow accumulation times cell size. So the cell size is 30 over 22.12. This is the standard erosion plots times the sine theta. So the sine theta here is the slope gradient map over 0.08916 raised to 1.3. So now, so this is the LS factor map of the MMFR. So now let's proceed to the C factor. So crop management factor refers to the vegetation, land use, land cover, and cropping management on the soil erosion. So it ranges from values 0 to 1, which indicates that the closer the value to 1, the higher the erosion risk. So for the computation of the C factor, so there are various methods such as assigning C factor on the LULC map, while other researchers use the normalized difference vegetation index, which measures the green vegetation from the characteristics of reflectance patterns. So NDVI values ranges from -1 to 1. So negative values for the water bodies in contrast to higher values for the green vegetation part. So I used NDVI in computation of the C factor using this formula. So this formula was used in various studies, specifically for tropical countries. So this is the C factor map of the MMFR. So now let's proceed for in the P factor value. So this is the land use of the MMFR. So the shapefile was derived from DNR region 4. So these are the P factor values. So P factor is defined as the ratio of soil loss with specific conservation practices to soil erosion. So P factor values range from 0.4 to 1, indicating that lower values contribute to the quantity of runoff and soil loss because of lesser impacts in soil conservation. So this is the soil erosion potential classes. So the annual soil loss in tons per hectare per year were classified into these classes. So none to slight, moderate, high, severe, and very severe. So here's the soil erosion potential map. So based on the figure, Sipit watershed has a very severe erosion potential class compared to the other four sub-watershed. So on the average, the Sipit has an erosion loss of about 32.4 tons per hectare per year, in contrast to the mean annual soil loss of 3.98 tons per hectare per year in Cambantok watershed. So the spatial distribution revealed that an increase in slope would also result in a higher soil potential loss. So to support these findings, the loose soil with very high organic matter and steep slopes in the summit area influence the vulnerability of seepage in soil erosion. It was also highlighted in the recent soil erosion assessment by FinZ in 2021 that among the 5 factors, the LS factor showed a strong correlation with soil erosion. So this is the extent of areas under different soil erosion potential classes. So the majority of the MMFR is under the none to slight category. It covers around the 68.36% of the MMFR, followed by the moderate. It is about 20.4%. The high, around 8.57, very high, 1.96 or about 2%, severe under 0.4, and then very severe 0.23%. So in conclusion, the annual soil loss of MMFR is ranging from 0 to 948.37 tons per hectare per year, with a mean of 9.92 tons per hectare per year. Results showed that the area falling under severe potential soil loss category is only about 9.93 hectares of the MMFR, and it was observed in the Sipit watershed. And then lastly, the non-to-slight category was estimated for the most of the MMFR, covering of about 2,971.66 hectares. So the study also indicated that cover management and topographic feature contributed the most among all the factors of the surface soil erosion considered in the study. So that concludes the presentation of my thesis study. Thank you and have a great day.